You're supposed to do the boo bit. Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Hello everyone, hi and welcome back. So we have with me here now Andy Barr. I'm sure a lot of you will know who Andy is. He's very well known on Twitter with his daily morning tweets to get everyone feeling inspired on a morning is brilliant. Great start to the day, and obviously he's sporting an amazing shirt. There we go.
Thank you very much. What a beautiful welcome.
So Andy is the founder of Tenyetis, and before he started the agency, he worked in-house on multi-medium campaigns for the likes of AXA, Unilever, First Group, and so many more. So yeah, Andy's here today, and he's going to talk about, what are you talking about?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me.
No.
No? Oh, no, I'm joking. Newsjacking. Whee! Start with a bit of banter. No. So, well, listen, thank you very much. I'm going to do that awful corporate. Can you see my screen? So just bear with me 1 second. Select PDF. No, thank you very much for inviting me along. I feel absolutely honoured. Thank you for helping me out with sorting my deck out and getting it working. Thank you to Asif, obviously. Thanks to We Are Resource. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the great comments about the shirt already. So I guess I'll just crack on. So I am going to talk about newsjacking. The short version is newsjacking is easy as fuck. So the good thing about this deck is I will send it around afterwards. You don't even need to pay attention. You can just fall asleep, have a biscuit, and let's see how we get on. So, introduction, try and sound dynamic, try and say something that will captivate people. I'm 45, I'm a Capricorn, hence the goat. I'm not saying I am a goat. I'm a dad of 3. I've worked for the goodies and the baddies in terms of PR. So some of the goodies, I've worked for a division, or our agencies work for a division of the Church of England. We've worked for lastminute.com, some nice charities like WaterAid. But let's talk about some of the baddies because that's far more fun. So when I worked in-house, I worked for an insurance company that was essentially evil. At the time, they were the 5th largest company in the world. Trying to do PR for them was quite difficult. I worked for an ice cream company where we accidentally killed people. So that was quite good fun. And then I worked for the world's largest bus and rail company. So yeah, that probably tells you enough in terms of crisis comms. But across all those kind of areas, I have always really pushed hard around newsjacking and those kind of things. So anyway, let's crack on. Today's about newsjacking. Before I get into the details, where did my obsession come from? Well, basically, I kept seeing that the digital PR/SEO brigade invented newsjacking, or they said that they invented newsjacking, and I just sort of didn't agree with that. I've been working in the industry for nearly 30 years, and the bottom line is I'm really stubborn, I'm really bitter, I'm really petty, and I thought, well, actually, that's not really the case. We were lucky in that our agency launched when online PR was taking off. Do you know what we called it? We just called it PR. We didn't differentiate between PR and digital PR and online PR. We just called it PR. So moving on, I thought, well, how can I address this absolute bullshit that the digital PR industry is talking? I know I will scour the national newspaper archives from the 1800s onwards to try and see when newsjacking did actually first kick off. Well, that was quite interesting. Now, unfortunately, I'm one of those people that, or unfortunately, I'm annoying as fuck. I only need about 4 hours sleep. Well, actually looking at me, because I probably look a lot older than 45. Maybe I need more than 4 hours sleep, but I only need 4 hours sleep, which means in the dead of night, quite often I just get up and do a bit of work, or in this case, trail through the whole of the British newspaper archive since the 1800s to try and get an understanding of where newsjacking came from. And what I discovered was an absolute, essentially, pile of shite adverts for the first few hundred years that would get banned nowadays. So, for example, there was a bath bomb advert in 1870 that said you dropped it into your bath and it would burn your fat off, which sounds incredibly painless. But anyway, you can't make claims like that anymore. So let's move on. What did I discover? So I discovered that digital PR people didn't, in fact, invent newsjacking. It actually started in 1909, which by my reckoning is about 75 years before the internet was invented. So yeah, that kind of proves that digital PR had nothing to do with newsjacking and where it came from. The AA were the first brand to newsjack that I found. So what they actually did was when the government announced a whole new set of rules around roads, the AA responded via newsjacking and basically put their comments in a really, really twee 1909 kind of way. So pre-1909, it was really strange. Journalists just reported this thing called facts. That's really odd. I don't know why. I don't know why anyone would do that when we can just add some newsjacking sprinklings on top. So anyway, they carried on with that. Really, their first kind of forms of newsjacking were letters to the editor. So basically, somebody would, a government department would put a statement out or an update out. The journalist would cover it very factually, and then about a week later, various bodies and organizations or businesses would react via letters to the editor. Now, there's a little competition here. If you tweet me with who you think that Yeti artist's impression is, that's a journalist who is a pioneer in regional media and who every PR person loves. So if you give me a tweet, or maybe pop it in the comments here to keep the chat in this platform, let me know who you think that journalist is. Anyway, regional media pioneered newsjacking from the 1950s onwards, and a really interesting part of that was when a national story broke and the regionals wanted to get their take on it, they would go to local businesses and speak to local business people and local managers to get a local take, which sounds very League of Gentlemen, but it's kind of how it was. That's how sort of newsjacking really started. And fast forward to now, and we have the kind of hyper local media taking it to the forefront. If we look at people like Reach PLC and how they're building whole platforms around essentially newsjacking and news aggregation and deploying it locally, it's really interesting. No, it's not Louis Theroux. I'm not really sure he is a regional journalist, but hey, let's roll with that. So yeah, hyperlocal media is taking it to the next level. But what does success look like in terms of newsjacking, and and why are we doing it? Well, obviously we get hundreds of media hits from it. So if you have a good reactive comment, then you're going to get an absolute ton of coverage from it. Now, the second bit, we talk about noise, and this is the difference between the digital PR brigade and the SEO brigade, who kind of get out there and talk this huge talk about links and follow links and no follow links. I cannot be bothered to get into that. I know all about it, but it's just a story for another day. Well, actually, if you go and speak to Google, which I do quite frequently, and people there, they don't talk about links. They talk about noise. And this is the great thing about newsjacking. It adds noise, and it adds noise at an important time. If every time I say the word noise, you imagine the word links, you kind of get where I'm going. So there's some really good examples of this. If you kind of look at people like Amazon, who are the masters of noise, around prime shopping times, such as Black Friday, they throw out these absolute bullshit stories. So a really good example is when they said that they were about to launch a drone delivery army. My dad, who's now sadly passed away, was very excited for this because he planned to sit on his porch and shoot down laptop-shaped boxes with his air rifle. Thank God Bezos didn't launch his drone army. Anyway, so Amazon launched all of these bullshit stories like the drone delivery stuff to create noise around peak shopping times because they know that they're going to absolutely saturate Google's SERPs and make sure that their message gets across at a prime shopping time, which is much better and much more effective than saying, oh, we're going to have fantastic deals, having an actual story. Another really good example of that is John Lewis with their Christmas ad. Whilst it is a fantastic TV spectacle, it's actually creating a lot of noise for John Lewis around a prime shopping time, which again saturates Google at a time when people are looking to shop. So newsjacking around these things, and for example, John Lewis, we've newsjacked around the John Lewis TV ad for various brands, is absolutely fantastic and really acts as another benefit of what we're doing. And then finally, obviously, because all agencies and PR people think of the award and then think back from that, it's a fantastic opportunity to pad out award entries, which is incredibly funny. So if you're an awards judge, as I am, basically because I'm a really nosy bastard, and you want to look at what other people are doing, I go and have a look, and quite often I'll see some fantastic metrics, such as we got 400 pieces of coverage within 3 months. But when you boil down into it, it's essentially 5 reactive comments that got syndicated. So really, that's 5 pieces of work. But hey, let's not let that get in the way of a good story. I'm going to stop very briefly for a drink of my tea because I have a sore throat. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. Oh, that was beautiful. Right, moving on. I'm going to say something incredibly controversial. It's really easy. There is some very famous people speaking later who are far more intelligent than I in the world of PR, one of which is the mighty Steve Waddington of Wads.Inc. And he said quite rightly, I've never seen anyone newsjack or link build their way out of a crisis communications situation. And this is very true. I think that newsjacking is actually the easiest part of the PR tactical mix. I think there are some things that I'll go through in a minute as to what makes that easy. But realistically, you can't use newsjacking to get your way out of a crisis. You can't, look at people like McDonald's who navigated their way through the donkey burgers situation and say that, oh, they newsjacked their way out of it. It's just a really easy, quick way of getting a ton of coverage. But really, it's not actually that hard, no matter what people say. And how very dare I say this, let's discuss why that is. So if we look at people like Hermes, or Herpes, whatever they're called, the delivery company, who've recently rebranded to Not As Shit As We Were, or I can't remember the actual name of the new brand. But if you look at people like that, they've not really newsjacked a huge amount, but it would be a tactical tool for them because they would flood Google and they would flood the news with their new brand, and it would actually push down the the crap of what's going on with their old brand. Now I know this because we were asked to work with a large delivery company, not the one that I've just mentioned, direct to consumer delivery company, and they asked us what we could do to help them. And after 9 pages of looking at the hate around their brand, we kind of came to the opinion that we were not a big enough agency to be able to help them. They needed 24-hour support on social media and PR, and that's not kind of the level that we're geared up for. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm guessing at this point you want some actual tips rather than me just be bitter about digital PR people and be horrible about SEO people. So let's crack on with some actual tips. So essentially, this is the only slide you need to screen grab and take away. All you need to do is be speedy as fuck. So that's really obvious when a story's breaking. Get your quote out within minutes. As a general rule, I say to people, if you can get your story out before press association has covered it, get your comment out before press association has covered it, then you're going to be absolutely fine and you stand a great chance. If you get your comment out after press association has run their version of it, it's going to be a lot harder. Next thing, you need to be quirky as fuck, obviously. So there's no point in just trotting out a dull statement. It's all about being interesting and saying something good. So when I worked in financial services, I was sacked. Don't tell anyone. I did a thing about the house market crash many years ago, and instead of just saying, yes, I think the housing market is going to be steady, I said there was more chance of the Loch Ness Monster swimming up the River Thames than there was of a house market crash. Now, that was a fantastic quote. Unfortunately, the next day there was a housing market crash. That was nothing to do with why I was sacked. We're not going to get into that. Stop asking me. So anyway, making yourself interesting and quirky is the key thing. Number 3, I'm not sure if this is a word. My 11-year-old twins last night fed back that they definitely didn't think it was a word, but they are educated in the countryside, so I'm not sure how intelligent they are. But be relationshipy as fuck. So this comes back to the battle between SEOs and PRs. In my mind, PRs are far better at storytelling and building relationships than those SEO people who are just, give me a link. That's all I want is a link. So it's all about us building relationships as PR people, doing our job as we should be. And if you've got good relationships, especially with people like Press Association or the traditional old wires like I can think of none of them very quickly, Jam Press or Caters, or those lovely people at Southwest News Service who never cut the client mention out of a story, then yes, it's all about building those relationships. And number 4 is make sure you have actual experts, not just blaggers. How dare you accuse me of being a blagger in this shirt? So yes, it's all about having experts. So we do a sort of yearly chunk of research internally on what are the most sought after experts in the media, and it's always medical experts. So that kind of covers off everything from, say, 20 minutes ago, the Daily Express have put something out looking for experts in vitamins and what vitamins you should take over winter because of the sort of breaking news around. Well, it's not breaking news. People are ill. There's a lurgy going around, but the Daily Mail and the Daily Express will absolutely love it. Yes, Sarah. I should probably. I can see. I can see we are resource panicking immediately about the legal consequences of me saying that Southwest News Service sometimes cut the client mention out of stories. How dare I? Allegedly, is that enough? Let's move on. So yes, it's about having experts, and obviously the number 1 in the moment tool is Twitter. Now, as much as we hate Twitter for being the lefty nonsense platform that it is, we have to be honest and say, okay, it's really handy for newsjacking. So make sure you've got Twitter on and the explore section, and then obviously breaking news being on in the office or your sex dungeon or wherever you work is really important as well. I think that's what's known as a Freudian slip. The next thing I think it is worth noting for myths is that when I started in my sector, it was stale, old, white head of comms that would always say, you can't plan for reactive and newsjacking. Well, that's absolutely not true. Now, I'm very conscious that I am now one of the pale, male, white, old people, but let's move on from that. But these are the tools that we use. So lse.co.uk has a stock market diary so that you can actually put out comments that are aligned, and you can plan them in advance for maybe, so say, for example, if Tesco are putting their results out and you're a food company or something like that, you could plan ahead and see and see what's coming out and put together some anticipated newsjacking reaction. That's something that we did for CarWow with SMMT when they would release their new car buying statistics. Obviously, the government has its own news grid, and that's publicly available, so you can go off and find that. And then also there's things like our very own, other agencies do them as well, Days of the Year calendar, where it lists every kind of one of those stupid days like National Hug a Weasel Day and things like that. And you can go ahead and plan some social media content in advance, or even some sort of PR statements and content in advance. So how can you add a little bit of spice, as they say on the TikTok? Well, I think the number one tip for that is flash polls. We've never done a flash poll in relation to a newsjacking situation that hasn't got coverage. So we would run a flash poll overnight. You're kind of looking for around 1,000 to 2,000 people to get involved and get their reaction to a breaking news story and put that out. If you can add some of your own custom animations for that, or some custom flat graphics for that, the media really love that as well. So flash polls are my number one tip. Myth number 3: you can't measure the value of newsjacking. Absolute rubbish. I know there's a few people that are watching today that are all about the hard numbers. So it's about becoming anal about data. So measure more than just boring industry stats. So those terrible reports that say 89 billion people were able to see that piece in the Manchester Evening News is obviously rubbish. But with the tracking that you can put in place between things like Google Analytics, you can see how many people have come through referral traffic from a news website and gone on to download a white paper, sign up for a newsletter, or dare I say it, make a purchase and help with sales. What? PR can help with sales? That is so weird. Yes, we can. So be more interested in measuring the actual data behind newsjacking so you can kind of measure it. And then essentially you get to go away and prove your worth. So in short, because we're coming to the end of it, thank God you will say, if I had to give you a TLDR, be quick, be interesting, add something to the story, measure, rinse, repeat. I've been Andy, you've been brilliant. Do we have any questions? I think I've done all right on time there as well.
Hello.
Hello.
You're Hi. Back. Yes, I'm back. Fab presentation. Yes, we do have quite a few questions that have come in, so we will quickly go through these. We've got a bit of time until the next session starts. So we'll start with this one. So Emma, she says, how do you get around company approval process in the Speedy AF bit?
Emma, that is a fantastic question. And I think this is why you are currently in the top 3 leaderboard, you absolute cheater. So there are a couple of things. Number one, make sure every good PR department is well aligned to a legal team. So that can mean taking them biscuits every other Friday, or it could mean actually talking to them and having a serious conversation. Don't do that. Never do that with legal people. But yeah, if you can get them to give you quick sign-off process, then yeah, that's how you get around it. I think it's also being plugged into your C-suite as well. So or if you're, dare I say, evil agency side like me, having WhatsApp conversations with your clients so that you can react within minutes. There's absolutely no excuse for for not being quick. When I think back to working for the evil insurance company that rhymes with Waxer, then if I could get reactive quotes out within 5 minutes, at a company that at its time was the 5th largest in the world, and bearing in mind I was an absolute clusterfuck at PR at the time, then I'm sure you, because you are amazing, will be able to do it far better than me.
Brilliant. And then we've got a question here from Jules Loveland. She said, can newsjacking work for other organisations other than brands, for example, charities, or should we steer away? So Jules actually works for a charity called Dementia Adventure, just for reference.
Great question, Jules. Big fan. So yes, of course you can. I think obviously if you are, you just need to be switched on, which you are, and not go after newsjacking things that are pretty dark. And so say for example, obviously there's a story going on in the press at the minute about the nurse who stands accused of murdering babies. Probably not a good idea to newsjack on dead babies. Now, when we did some work with WaterAid. There was a story that basically 2,000 babies a day were dying because of dirty water, and we were kind of able to newsjack on that using WaterAid's charity brand strength and what they were actually trying to do to show that people, or to help people realize how much of a difference they could make. So yeah, as long as it's done sensitively and it's really in your sweet spot as an expert, then yes, 100% charities can do it, and we've done this time and time again for, as I say, brands like WaterAid.
Perfect. And we've got one here from Adam Driver. So do you have a reactive sub-team for clients in terms of newsjacking, or is it a call to arms and then you go for it as an agency?
Reactive sub-team sounds very digital PR, Adam, and I know you well enough to say that. So no, we don't. I mean, there is this growth, and I'm not digging anyone out here because loads of agencies do it. There is this growth now in people saying, oh, we've got a reactive team that are just dedicated to doing reactive stuff. Well, I'm not sure how that sits with me. I think it's about good PR people should be switched on. They should be switched on to the news agenda. Like the first thing I do in the morning is obviously check the coverage whilst sat on the toilet having a poo and reading the headlines and thinking, right, what can we react to? Nice mental image for everybody there. But yes, if you're a good PR person, you should always be looking for reactive opportunities.
Fab. And then lastly, just we need to wrap up for the next session starting soon. Do you agree with the research that found that people who swear more are more intelligent?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that. Thank you very much. I'm sure that I've filled up somebody's swear box somewhere. Hope nobody's kids were listening. I love you all. Thank you for your time. We're running out of time. Available on Twitter. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Resource. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.